Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Good morning, Glenn.
Hey, Mikey.
How's it going today?
Good, man. How you doing, brother?
You know, I'm here to find out.
All right. Do a pulse check. Do a check-in. Do a coffee check-in.
That's right. I mean, you're going to tell me how I'm doing. What do you love to say? A man can't read his own label, right?
That's right, man. You can't read the label on your own jar.
That's right.
So let's read each other's, right? But super excited to be here again, man. I just love having coffee. Love coffee. You know, in fact, not going to release any info yet, but a little teaser, as you like to say. Working with a potential partner / sponsor / just a great guy, and we're exploring it now. So hopefully, just as an additional teaser, it is coffee related. So we'll see how it works out.
You got me on the edge of my seat, Glenn.
I know. We'll see.
Edge of my seat. So I can't believe this is kind of the wrap up of our series, if you will. We've been walking through the steps. For those listening in at home, we started out with the 12-step program and have taken a coffee each week to talk about the steps. And I can't believe we're at the season finale.
Or as some people say, that's just when the work really begins.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's this hour is easy. The odds of me actually picking up this hour are pretty light, But then I've got 23 hours on the outside of this coffee shop that I need to apply some of the principles that we've laid out and that I've learned and now are relaying out.
Yeah, in fact, you're making me go back to the first rehab I was in 2003 in Laguna Beach. So I'm there for a week and I found a temporary sponsor. And I mean, I was so ego driven and so materialistic. I picked him because of the kind of watch he had. He came in from the outside. He spoke to, and he said, "Hey, you guys should get a temporary sponsor." So of course I raised my hand in the middle of the meeting. I'm like, "Dude, I want you to be my sponsor." He goes, "Hey, let's talk after the meeting." But I picked him because he had a nice watch. So anyhow, he takes me out. And we're driving down Pacific Coast Highway in his convertible, and I remember looking over to him. And tapping my watch and say, "Come on, man, let's go. Let's hurry up. I got 3 weeks to finish these steps, and then I have to get back to work." And here I am, 18 years later or so, still working the steps.
Still working the steps. When do we end? Well, it's funny. I was thinking. I was re-listening to a couple of our coffees, and I was thinking to myself, boy, I could take these and just binge watch. I could binge listen, just like, like a good Netflix series. I could binge watch, but that's funny. Not going to accelerate my program, right?
No, and I mean, hey, steps, you can sit there and read them, but they're really, most of them are action steps,
Absolutely.
Right? So it's not just sitting there reading them, but, it's certainly digging in and figuring stuff out. And hey, you know what? You can go on the web, and this is just our take on it. Our coffee chat on the 12 steps. Yep. I mean, if you go online, there's PhDs weighing in on the 12 steps, whatever. But this is just us.
I'm ADD.
ADHD, PhDs, right?
That's right.
There you go.
I qualify for something. I don't know what.
Perfect, man.
But that's a great point. We're just a couple of guys with the desire to share our story, maybe bring somebody a little closer to hope in a hopeless situation. That's it.
Yeah, but I will say that you just did a math equation that
we did.
that we're like, well, Brian, our engineer, says, okay, what happens after these 12 steps? And funny thing is this whole idea started, Mikey, you and I go to the same meetings, and Mikey took notes. Right. So after every meeting, I usually come out with one or two morsels, right, that I can really chew on that day and really learn from and live differently because of. Right. But you took notes. And one time you said, man, I got like 740 Like, and I'm like, man, that is so valuable. And I know what some of them are. I'm like, that'd be so valuable just to get on a mic and share that with other people, you know. So, hey, we are not PhD levels. We are not experts. We are not, but we're just two guys that are at the coffee shop in the corner.
I'll tell you, our only qualifier is combined. We have 72 years of being out on the
of stories.
72 years of stories to tell. So, anyway, step 12. Let's get down to the business here. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
So, as we say, words matter, and there's a lot of words in there. You know. Spiritual awakening, you know, for me, I mean, that's, you know, living in a new spiritual way, but I just live differently. You know, that's kind of how I underlined it. And then try to carry this message to alcoholics. You know, I look at that as service, right? But for a lot of times, Mikey, I stop there, right? And I forget what the rest of this is, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And that's, you know, for me, that's looking at that list of 194 defects and, you know, working on a regular basis, continuous basis to eliminate those.
Well, here's the beautiful thing about the program. I honestly didn't even know what a principle was. I was not guided by principles for most of my life.
I thought they were the ones like in grade school.
Called me to the office.
I thought you were in that principal's office a lot. I thought you had a good understanding of what that was.
Which, by the by, one of my favorites here. You open the.
Is this one of these 76 years of stories?
You put the ball on the tee. You know, I was on the dean's list. I don't know if you know that.
I do not believe that. Show me.
Absolutely. He called me to his office every day of the week. Mike R. report to the dean's office.
Oh, that dean's list.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, I didn't live by principles, and so yeah, it's going to be fun unpacking that a little bit because principles are something I've learned a lot about and realized that I have those inside me that are now redefined, retooled, and ready for deployment.
Yeah. So it just hit me here. You know, a live thought. You know, principles. The way I looked at it. You know, we talked about this in step 6, right? That list of 194 defects, right? And to me, that just takes me back to, you know, that religion I had growing up. A ton of don'ts, right? Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, right? And I look at things differently today. So it's funny because as soon as we said principles, you know, I thought eliminate the defects, right? But you know, the principles are the opposite of the defects.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
And it's like, you know, hey, instead of being judging, be loving, right? So it's a counter. So it's not don't do this, don't do that, but hey, be this, right? So instead of, hey, don't eat sugar, don't eat donuts, hey, eat fruit.
Right.
Type of thing, right?
Right. So, you know, it starts out a little bit if we want to look at the words, it says having had a special so step 12 assumes that we've had some kind of awakening over as a result of doing the previous 11 steps, right? So for me, I had an awakening, and I can't say it was a bolt of light that came down, you know, through the ceiling of a room, though that happened to me many times prior in my drinking days. With some weird things like that would happen, but you know, yeah, I absolutely had an awakening, and the awakening was a self awakening, a spiritual awakening, you could say, of self awareness, and I want to say confidence is the wrong word, Glenn. I don't know what I'm looking for, but there was a relearning of who I was, and so a positioning, right? A position change. I'm not making my point. I can see by the dumbfounded look on your face. Like, what are you trying to say, Mike? Just say it.
Well, I'm almost done with my coffee, so I probably need new coffee. Right. But no, I mean those lightning bolts. You know, and I think the way you were trying to describe it is they were like just like emotional, you know, snippets in time, right?
Right.
You know, good or bad. You know, and for me, and I do watch others, you know, and that's how I've I've learned a lot from the program, but I watch how other people live the program. I've heard the stories of people in like rehab, right? And like the first night in rehab, they get down on their knees by their bunk and, they say a prayer and they can feel the lightning bolt come down from God and God changes them forever, and I'm not mocking that because maybe I'm jealous of that, but dude, that is nowhere near how it happened for me. Because as a result of these steps, the steps took me a long time. It took me several years to get to the steps, right? And I know it wasn't a lightning bolt change for you either. It was, it was over time,
Sure. Yep. So, I love what you just said, and it helped me define what I was thinking and trying to get out. But you're right. My spiritual awakenings over the years where I thought I was repositioning were really just aberrations in emotion. I think that's what I heard you say to me. And, Yeah,
and then, with the whole carrying the message thing, the first couple times I read that, it took me back to college, where, people got in the van with their bullhorns and went down the street corner and, were bullhorning, their view of religion out to people on the street as they were shopping. And I never really saw a good effect come from that. Right. So that's the first thing I thought is, okay, how are we going to have to spread this, message? Which bullhorn do we use? Right. And so that had a negative impact. But over time, I've learned that carrying the message, first of all, can just be an example. Right. Just live the program, yourself, be committed to the program, share in meetings, show up, serve coffee, make coffee, chair meetings, just, just sharing in meetings can be a way of serving.
Can be a big way, right?
So I think being an example, I think you have to work the program before you can give it away. Before you can coach somebody else through it, you have to go through it yourself. I love people that are on step 3 and are trying to sponsor people. I don't see it working that way.
Right.
Although I know the early guys did it that way. They did it real quick, and but I think the example is very important.
Yeah. So as I look at carrying the message to other alcoholics, one of the things that I look back at is purpose. In my life, I had jaunts of what I thought was clear purpose, but I really always needed to manufacture a new me in order to achieve that purpose. I had to be chameleon-like. I had to be funnier. I had to be faster. I had to be quicker. I had to be smarter. I had to be taller. Not possible, by the way. And yeah, right. And but for carrying the message to other alcoholics is such a natural to me, just because again, all I can do is relate to their story, and hopefully they relate to mine. So.
Yeah, it's funny. My first experience, I shared this at meetings for many years when I was in the earlier steps, and I was never a step 12. And people would ask me my opinion of step 12, and I'm like, well, I'm not there yet. I said, but I can assure you this. I said, I am a byproduct of other people working their step 12.
Right.
I have a sponsor who was relentless with me, relentlessly committed. All my relapses. I'd be in the middle of another relapse, another hospital, 2 a.m, my sponsor would roll in. I'd be in some other town, in a police station, my sponsor would roll in. The level of commitment and service work that he did for me and others. I had a sober brother in the program. I came out of that 4-month program. He says, hey, man, I got a big house. I got empty rooms. How about just come and staying with me until you get on your feet. I stayed with him for almost 3 years, and what a sober time that was of growth and figuring things out. And I've had, people help me with cash. I've had people help me with rides. I've had people, get on the phone with me at all kinds of hours. I've had people tolerate me and forgive me and serve me. As we I'll jump ahead to the hope section, then we'll sling back. But my sponsor. I love it today because then, when I started serving other people, first thing, because of my ego and, I'm a show off, or I still a little bit of a show off. I call my sponsor. I'm like, hey, here's what I did for so-and-so. And he responded, he goes, so what? And I'm like, what do you mean, so what?
Not impressed.
Yeah, like, so what do you mean, so what? Man, you should be like proud of me. He's like, dude, that's what you're supposed to do. Right. Grow up, And then he said something that has stuck with me. And every time I get tired of, hey, here's another phone call, right? 4 times today, this guy's calling me, He said to me, he said, Glenn, he said, there are not enough lifetimes for you to repay all the people that have done things for you. And man, I remember that, and the things that people did for me shocked me because they didn't ask for anything in return. And I wasn't used to that. I'm used to business.
Right.
Hey, if somebody does 2 for me, I owe them 4. That's just how my whole life was wired.
Right. Isn't that how the world basically is wired? It's transactional.
It's scorekeeping. Yeah, scorekeeping. Right. And there is no scorekeeping here, and it's amazing. Right. And so people working their 12-step with me was kind of my first experience with the 12-step, and really caught my attention. And then, it's funny when I would call him up and actually said to him, I'm like, yeah, but if I do service for somebody and don't tell you, or don't tell somebody and nobody knows about it, then it didn't really count.
Right.
And boy, that's not how this works.
I heard a phrase early on in the program, and I was confused by it at first, but I'd like to talk about it for a minute. And that is, in order to get it, you need to give it away. And that didn't make any sense to me because I was so focused on my own sobriety. I thought, what do I have to give away? First of all, and secondly, what do you mean by then I get it? I didn't understand that. I've come to an appreciation of the fact that 2 things, and I want you to correct me where I'm wrong or right onto this, but first of all, it takes me out of myself. I feel qualified to help somebody out, I don't have the answer to sobriety. All I can do is convey the story of what happened to me, what steps I took, and what life is like now. And boy, every time I have an opportunity to one-on-one with somebody, or in this case, one-on-many, it works.
So let me put you on the spot.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not putting you on the spot to applaud you, although I always do that. But just to paint a picture for others of what it means to serve others. What are some of the things that you do today, under Step 12 to, carry this message to other alcoholics?
Okay. Well, and again, there are several things that are ingrained and intertwined into my daily life. But I would say the one most important thing that I position myself, and I learned this from my sponsor. He told me it's a smartphone. Be smart with it. Plug numbers in there, and I want you to use those numbers. Day 2 of my program, he told me, here's what I want you to do. I want you to call Fred, Bill, and Mark every day. Fred, Bill, and Mark. Call them every day. Just check in.
Okay, so I am going to organize this a little bit.
Okay.
Right? I'm going to call you out, and I'm going to put your paragraphs into bullet points.
Okay, great. Yep.
So I view that as staying connected with other alcoholics.
Yep, absolutely. Service.
Daily.
Yeah, service daily. I don't know if you check this off, but, I'm a big Zoom, with the pandemic. We had to transition really quickly. We had to move into an environment. One of my favorite experiences in the program is a week before March 16, 2020. A young man walked into the rooms, and he was broken, Glenn. He was hurt. He was distraught, and he wanted help. He was in a place of desperation, and he needed help to come to the other side, to sobriety. And I met with him for 4 days, March 12th through March 16th. And I showed up at the center specifically because I felt he'd come back. I felt something about him that he had a desire to stop drinking. and to find a better way of life. And he showed up on the 13th, and he showed up on the 14th, and he showed up on the 15th. On the 16th, the center closed, and there were no more meetings. There were no more meetings. There was no more place for him to go get hope. And quickly, myself and a couple of people in the program said, we've got to find a better way. And our knee-jerk reaction was to get on a 1-800 free conference call. And
that worked well, didn't it?
Trying to use that technology that was brought to us in 1980. And then quickly, days after that, found Zoom, as so many people did, and quickly set up an account, established meetings to help people 7 nights a week.
Okay, so again, to take your 300 words and put it into a bullet point.
Put a bullet. It's
going to be 2 bullet points. Let's just make 2 bullet points out of that. So, first one is staying connected daily with other alcoholics through the phone.
Right.
Secondly is that you welcome people, that you welcome newcomers.
Absolutely.
But welcome everybody. But I just know that you have a passion. And we're probably going to go over 18 minutes here, but so be it. That you welcome newcomers into the room, right?
Right.
And you also attend many Zoom meetings.
Many.
So that's the that's the third bullet point.
Right.
Attend Zoom.
Yep.
Okay. So what else do you do to serve others?
This is the Sunday school answer, but it's an honest program, and I pray for the people that I come across. I mean, I don't pray every day, but man, I pray up for them specifically.
Is it situational? So when you see somebody going through something, that's when you drop prayer, or do you have to have a prayer list that you pull out?
A prayer list that I pull out. Yep.
All right.
Yep, do that daily.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. All right, what else? We're doing our list. That's number 4.
I stay sober. I just don't take the first drink, and that's it.
So by staying sober, that helps you be available and be an example.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nope.
So I'm going to push on that.
Okay.
Because I know you do other things. You chair meetings. Just to continue on the bullet points, you coordinate and lead a Sunday morning open speaker meeting / breakfast.
Oh, it's a great event.
Right?
Yeah.
You're involved in a men's group, spiritual men's group that involve quite a number of
people from the program.
Yeah, people from the program, right? You do a podcast, right? I have known you to carry and deliver big books to people.
They need them.
In fact, I'll tell this story also. And I'm not. Hey, I'm proud of you. And
yeah, I'm not liking the way this is turning.
Hey, man,
I'm liking the brochure.
I think it's important to point out things, action steps, right? For step 12,
right?
And folks may be sitting out there and saying, hey, well, what does that look like? Well, we want to paint that picture. And I think, recently in one of these Zoomer meetings, and another bullet point is you sponsor guys, right?
Right.
You don't sponsor women, right?
Nope.
Okay, guys. All right. So there was a guy who was just celebrating his 1 year. Mm-hmm. I think it might have been the guy that you just referenced.
Sure. Right.
All right. So he was celebrating
his
1 year.
Yep.
We're on Zoom, and folks, this is so touching. I got chills. But this is an example of step 12. And Mikey's not going to tell it himself, so I'll tell it. So we're on Zoom, and this guy's celebrating his 1 year, and the guy's at work. Okay, so the guy's on Zoom at work in the back room, and he says, hey, I got 1 year, sober. And here comes Mikey behind him, right? And, in the room to give him his 1 year coin. It was a surprise to the guy. The guy had no idea. And hey, it's those little things that have major impact, And, I think it's for me, I do the mental gymnastics, right? And I sit there and, I love serving people, but I benefit from it. Mm-hmm. I personally benefit. A, I stay sober. B, I have purpose. It drives my purpose, to get outside of myself. And dude, I see you so many. So I stopped writing them down, but I think that's 8 or 9, right? But part of it is being the example, right? Just living and working the program yourself so that you can be an example to others. And I know you have a passion for newcomers. You have that whole Zoom meeting, and it's funny. I was there with you the first couple times, and there were 3 people on the call, 4 people on the call, and I know that. I was almost going to call your mom up just so there'd be 5, right?
Yeah, right.
And
she would have showed too.
Yeah, totally. And now there's 40 to 50. There's people celebrating. So I mean, hey, I just this is not about bragging. Right. But I think it's important to paint realistic action steps of things to do in the gym in the strength part of our section.
Let me tell you what, and thank you very much for pulling me through that and reading my label. I started out the coffee talking about purpose, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say I feel this is my life purpose now to help the next person. Everything you just said, and being able to celebrate with a guy I'm working with a 1-year anniversary. It was the best day of my year. It was just the best day of my year, seeing the program working for somebody else. And I know how important that first year was for me, and so I wanted to make it important for him. But look, here's the thing. That's not old Mike. Old Mike would have never done that. Old Mike would have never done that because old Mike was just pretending to have purpose. New Mike really has a purpose. And yeah, it puts a bounce in my step. Yeah,
so some might say that's the practicing these principles in all our affairs, Right. And my first real experience or example of serving, up until then, I'd help others with a check. Mm-hmm. I'd write a check and hey, don't bother me, I don't have time. And my first example, I was in that Laguna Beach rehab, and my temporary sponsor, one time we were out at a meeting, we were coming back, and he says, hey, here's what I want you to do. I said, yeah, what's that? He goes, go back up there, take off your fucking Gucci's, and scrub that kitchen floor. I was like, do what?
Do what?
Like, I'm paying a ton of money to, I'm not doing that. He goes, no. He goes, if you want me to be your sponsor, you got to do what I tell you. He goes, I'm suggesting you go up there and scrub that kitchen floor. And I did. Mm-hmm. And it was just such an eye opener. It was so different for me, that was just, and hey, I just did it because he told me to do it. Now I do it, stuff like that because there's value in serving others. And, it's a transformation. We've talked about that over these last 12 steps. These 12 steps, help folks transform from living one way into living a better, more purposeful, peaceful, joyful, happy, blah, blah, blah way.
Right. Well, my transformation took me from muddled and principle-less. And I just brought this in. I'll kind of close with this on my end anyway. I have this hanging in my office. And these are kind of a synopsis of the principles, which again, I came in with no principles into this program. And these are the principles that I've learned as a result of these steps. Hope and honesty, acceptance, patience, courage, integrity, humility, responsibility, willingness, forgiveness, discipline, servant, and love.
Man, I love that list, and I think we should post that list in the resource section just as a reminder for folks. If you've got it on your wall, somebody else might put it on their wall. But the way I, just quickly absorb that is that is fuel. All those principles are fuel, for a new purpose. And, I was talking to a guy recently, and, I'll close with this, but I was talking to a guy recently, and he pointed out, he goes, Glenn, your story is such an asset to help other people, to give people hope, to give people that, hey, you went through hell, you worked this program, you are proof, through the promises that this program, if you work it, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, but it will come. And I used to be ashamed of my story. Mm-hmm. I used to be embarrassed. I hated my story. I lost everything. I went to hell. Who wants to brag about that? Mm-hmm. But now selectively, I'm starting to see where that story has value and can give somebody else hope.
Tremendous value. Thank you so much. Today's been valuable, Glenn.
Love you, man. Step 12.
Can't wait to see you next week.
Let's get back to work.
Have a great one.
All right, brother.
All right, bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.
Stay safe in the city of Chicago.